£50 for the recovery of the jewels. I'll think it over. Where is the stuff? Here, said Rabot to the other's surprise. In 10-20 minutes, I could lay them on your hands, Mr. Goodman. Here seemed a straightforward piece of negotiation. It was doubly unfortunate that at that very period he should find himself mixed up in an affair which promised no profit whatever, the feud of Mary Lou Plessy, which was to become his because of his very high regard for the lady. When a woman is bad, she is usually very bad indeed, and Mary Lou Plessy was an extremely malignant woman. She was rather tall and handsome, with black sleek hair, boyishly shingled, and a heavy black fringe that covered a forehead of some distinction. Mr. Reader saw her once. He was at the Central Criminal Court giving evidence against Bartholomew Xavier Plessy, an ingenious Frenchman who discovered a new way of making old money. His forgeries were well-nigh undetectable, but Mr. Reader was no ordinary man. He not only detected them, but he traced the printer, and that was why Bartholomew Xavier faced an unimpassioned judge who told him in a hushed voice how very wrong it was to debase the currency, how it struck to the very roots of our commercial and industrial life. This the debonair man in the dock did not resent. He knew all about it. It was the judge's curt postscript which made him wince. You will be kept in penal servitude for 20 years. That Mary Lou loved the man is open to question. The probabilities are that she did not, but she hated Mr. Reader, and she hated him not because he had brought her man to his undoing, but because in the course of his evidence he had used the phrase, "the woman with whom the prisoner is associated," and Mr. John Reader could have put her beside Plessy in the dock had he so wished. She knew this too, and loathed him for his mercifulness. Mrs. Plessy had a large flat in Portland Street. It was in a block which was the joint property of herself and her husband, for their graft had always been on a grand scale, and Mr. Plessy owned racehorses before he owned a number in Parkhurst convict establishment, and here Mary Lou entertained lavishly. A few months after her husband went to prison, she dined tete-a-tete with Mo Liskey, the biggest of the gang leaders, and an uncrowned emperor of the underworld. He was a small, dapper man who wore pince-nez and looked rather like the member of one of the learned professions. Yet he ruled the Straffers and the Sullivans and the Burklows, and his word was law on a dozen racetracks, in a score of spieling clubs, and innumerable establishments less liable to police supervision. People opposing him were incontinently coshed. Rival leaders more or less paid tribute, and walked warily at that. He levied toll upon bookmakers, and was immune from police interference by reason of their 2 failures to convict him. Since there are white specks on the blackest coat, he had this redeeming feature, that Mary Lou Plessy was his ideal woman, and it is creditable in a thief to possess ideals, however unworthily they may be disposed. He listened intently to Mary Lou's views, playing with his thin watch-guard, his eyes on the embroidery of the tablecloth. But though he loved her, his native caution held him to reason. "That's all right, Mary Lou," he said. "I dare say I could get Reader, but what is going to happen then? There will be a squeak louder than a bus brake, and he's dangerous. I never worry about the regular busies, but this old fellow is in the public prosecutor's office, and he wasn't put there because he's silly. And just now I've got one of the biggest deals on that I've ever touched. Can't you do him yourself? You're a clever woman. I don't know a cleverer." "Of course, if you're scared of Reader," she said contemptuously, and a tolerant smile twisted his thin lips. "Me? Don't be silly, dearie. Show him a point yourself. If you can't get him, let me know. Scared of him? Listen, that old bird would..."